everyone. Welcome to Ask the Expert. It's the Friday the 13th edition, and it's just me and George today. How you doing, George?
Pretty good, Leticia. How you doing?
I'm doing actually fabulous. It is 414 days until Mayor de Blasio is out of office. It's like, it can't be fast enough, I think, for many of us. But that's not the reason I'm feeling so good. I'm feeling great about what you and I did this morning, George. Why don't you tell everybody?
I love mornings like this. It was a special morning today. We had the good fortune of connecting the little supermarket chain with Project Hospitality today, and they delivered 800 turkeys for Thanksgiving to families in need here on Staten Island this morning. So out in the rain, we were out there unloading turkeys today, and that's the kind of work that I like to do. I would do that every day if I was a billionaire.
Yeah, well, thankfully, our friends at Lidl, they were fantastic. They are now a big part of the Verrazano Kiwanis Club, which George is incoming president of, and our dear friend Celia Ayovesi is the current president of, and the founder, Steve DiArgentine, and many Staten Islanders know him, and everybody I just mentioned. But Lidl hooked up with the Verrazano Kiwanis Club and hooked up with Project Hospitality and the Staten Island Downtown Alliance. And we were all out there today, and we were unloading those turkeys. And it was just a great, great feeling to know that, especially now with COVID, there are so many people that were once providers of foods and donations to organizations like Project Hospitality or Catholic Charities or any other feeding organization. And they're now, because of COVID, they find themselves in need of food. And Project Hospitality has been helping them with food pantries as Catholic Charities, and Lidl stepped up to give everybody a happy Thanksgiving with a turkey. And it was great because we got to work out, we got a little wet, but more importantly, we know that donation is going to families in need. So it's great. And George, it's great what the Verrazano Kiwanis Club has done. I mean, Steve was saying that in your short 3 years of being together, you raised more than $150,000 for organizations.
Yeah, and most of that was in the first 2 years. Obviously, COVID really hamstringed us in our ability to raise funds this year. But yeah, in the first 2 years of our existence and a little into the third, we came close to 150,000 for local charities like Michael's Cause, Staten Island University Hospital. I'm sure I'm forgetting more. Autism Speaks. And
Sunrise, right? Sunrise Day Camp.
Sunrise Day Camp. That's right. It was a big part of that 150,000. And Sunrise Day Camp, for those of you who don't know about Sunrise Day Camp, they are a camp for children with cancer and their siblings. And what's really great is the end their siblings part, because really the siblings are forgotten sometimes because all the focus goes on the one that needs it, right? This is the normal. This is the way it should be. But this camp for free opens it up to kids with cancer and their siblings, and we were happy to put. I forget. I want to say it was anywhere between, I think it was between 10 and 20 kids through camp in the last 2 years, and it was a big happiness for us. We were happy to do that. Love that kid.
Yeah, and look out for the white party that goes on. Well, obviously with COVID, it didn't happen this year, but the white parties were fantastic. And I know that you and the rest of the Verrazano Kiwanis and others will figure out ways to continue the fundraising, maybe both virtual. But for Sunrise, I know that those kids depend on organizations like the Verrazano Kiwanis and others to help them, and it's fantastic. So my mom, our number one fan, is out shopping. I checked in just before.
Oh no!
We got on. Yeah, she actually got out of the house shopping. But we have my Aunt Santa Guglielmo with us today. Hi, Aunt Santa, and thank you very much for saying I look adorable in my hat. That hat is on because we were out in the rain from 9 o'clock till 11 this morning. Getting those turkeys off the truck. So, George, we've got some developments in the last week's election. Locally, we have a winner in the congressional race. Nicole Malliotakis has been officially declared the winner of the 11th congressional district. Max Rose has conceded to her, and she is right now in Washington, getting a feel for the place and taking a look at the agenda for 2021 and what's going on there. And so that's great news for us. George, we both know Nicole, so it's no surprise to anyone that we are big supporters. And I've known Nicole since she's a teenager, and we're supporters of Nicole. But let's just talk about the race for a minute, and I'd love to hear it from some of the people that are watching us. What do you think was the issue that flipped this red seat that became a blue seat back to red this year? I mean, was it one issue? Was it a series of issues? I mean, what do you think?
A lot of people are going to tell you that it was the defund the police that won this race. And I think a lot of the pundits and experts are going to say it was law enforcement. As a Staten Islander, I have another opinion about that. I think Max Rose failed to run the correct ads. He attacked a beloved Staten Islander, by most, right? Not everybody has a love fest, but he attacked somebody on example. He tried to tell Staten Islanders that Nicole Malliotakis would raise your taxes. And Staten Islanders looked at that and went, I've been watching this girl yap for 10 years about lowering my taxes and fighting the property tax cap. And she's on the floor of the assembly talking to Blasio, comparing her taxes to his taxes and how unfair they were. And we've had, at least since 2016, been delivering this message hard. For some reason, his campaign decided, let me attack her on taxes. In a very dirty manner too, mind you, right? That's one thing that I think led to part of the victory. Certainly him marching with defund the police didn't help him in any way, shape, or form. His victory, in my opinion, back in, what was it, 17, was hollow. 16?
No, I'm sorry. It was 18.
18. His victory in 18 against Dan Donovan was a hollow victory because there was a push back against Dan at that time, not against Republicans. Actually, I think Dan made some votes that Republicans didn't like, and they decided to give this centrist a try. They took him for a spin. They realized that he is far worse and not the centrist that he said he was. So I give a lot more credit to the people of Staten Island for seeing through the guise of this man being a centrist and poor ads. Now, disclaimer, I run part of the team that runs Nicole's ads. And there was this the most wicked set of ads ever, but Max Rose came at us with the most vile, disgusting ads I've ever seen. So, from my perspective, punching back wasn't an option. We had to. I think Max made a mistake. He attacked Nicole on many levels that everyone already knew Nicole very well. Yep. So he didn't talk about his issues, his accomplishments very much at all. I didn't see a lot of ads talking about that. He attacked her on her owning stock in a pharmaceutical company, which, by the way, every federal employee, it's in their 401k. She had 100 shares of Johnson & Johnson, and he spent $1 million running ads saying she backs big pharma. We're not stupid here in Staten Island. Backing big pharma means taking PAC money like Max took, through the back door, he was getting way more pharma money than we were ever getting through Nancy Pelosi's PACs. So, he came off as two-faced, and I think people saw it.
I have to agree with you. I think, I've been in politics for over 30 years now, and it's been a long time. The one
brand new.
But the one thing that in campaign 101 is define yourself before somebody else gets a chance to define you. And for me, watching Max Rose lead out of the gate with a 1-2 punch to Nicole, trying to discredit her and say that she was something that she wasn't. It backfired on him not once but twice. It had, to me, a double whammy. Number one is 2 years ago he came on the scene and people gave him an opportunity with a movement which was part of a blue wave. Okay, and they gave him an opportunity in this blue wave, but they really didn't know him. He wasn't from Staten Island. He was from Park Slope, but before being from Park Slope, he was really traveling with the Army, so he didn't have real community roots, so to speak. And so people really didn't know him. They liked the way he spoke, whatever, but they didn't know who he was. Now, if I was running the Max Rose campaign, the one thing I would have said to him was come out of the gate saying, hey, remember me? I'm Max Rose. You gave me your vote 2 years ago, and this is what I did with it. And I would have redefined myself, because the difference between Max and Nicole is Max was in office for 2 years, brand new to Staten Island and basically Park Slope, where Nicole had been a 10-year elected official who was voted for 5 times in her assembly district, Staten Island and Brooklyn, and also in the 11th congressional. We know almost 60% of the people voted for her for mayor. So why in the world would anyone advise this congressman that was the way to go, to try and discredit somebody that the people already knew? It was just a wrong move. He needed to talk more about himself than she, because she was already a known quantity, and he should have actually talked about anything that he accomplished. But we saw the same in the Gennardis Vito Bruno race in Brooklyn, in that Gennardis came out of the gate punching on Marty Golden in 2018, and in 2020 he came out of their gate punching on a little known entity of Vito Bruno, who was well known in the community, but not necessarily a known quantity in the political circles. And Gennardis might have signed his own death warrant on this one, because they are counting paper, and Vito Bruno had a pretty large lead over Gennardis. But again, nasty, nasty, nasty politics, which spends money putting, raising the identification of your opponent before you spent the money raising your own name ID and actually allowing voters to know who you are. And I think that this kind of campaigning might have seen its end.
I hope so. That round with Nicole, I've been running ads for lots of political ads over my career here now, thanks to you and your political mind. I felt dirty after the end of this campaign. It was necessary. I just never seen that level of attack. And like Gennardis, he tried to attack. There used to be a time where you took a truth and you stretched it. Now they're just making shit up. It's just coming out of the air. He accused Vito Bruno of being involved in something with a club he didn't even own and wasn't even there. But he had no problem doing it. Same thing with Max Rose. Max Rose fabricated a lot of facts. And stretching is politics. I expect people to take something and stretch it. But 100 shares of Pfizer doesn't mean, he said in one of his ads, I think she's responsible for the death of 2,500 people for 100 shares of Pfizer.
Of Johnson & Johnson, yeah.
Johnson & Johnson, whatever it was,
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
Pharma. This is disgusting. right? I don't mind you taking a truth and amplifying the truth. This is expected in politics, right? And I think everyone's smart enough when they listen, they can hear between the lines of the truth. But when you say were you responsible for killing 2,500 people because you had 100 shares in your 401k? You told every Staten Islander that they're also responsible for killing those people because we have it in our 401k.
That's right.
It's horrible.
And I think that it was always called the silly season, but the 2020 elections just overall were just horrendous because I don't know if it's coming out of Washington or where it's coming out of. I mean, there used to be, honor amongst campaigns. And, certainly I've been around since Ronald Reagan. And the first campaign I ever worked on, it was the Nixon campaign when I was a baby.
Holy moly!
But I knew that I was a Richard Nixon fan, and and I worked hard on that campaign with my friends in the neighborhood because my girlfriend's father was a big Nixon fan. My parents, though, were not Nixon fans, so I didn't let them know how into the campaign I was. But I remember watching the returns at Diana's father's house, and believe it or not, Diana was a first generation American, and her father was from the Ukraine, and he was a big Republican because he was against communism and socialism, and he came to America to escape that. And I remember him being so involved in the Nixon campaign. And I saw a lot of that happen now. Let's talk about the big, election, the presidential election. When we were working in Nicole's headquarters, or the Republican headquarters, because it was everybody's headquarters, and I think I mentioned this last week, so many immigrants, Russian, Chinese, Cuban, Mexican, coming into the headquarters and saying that they wanted to make sure they were registered to vote because they wanted to vote because they were very fearful of America being plunged into a communistic regime. And so we see the numbers now that, for Donald Trump, that the numbers rose in all minority areas, right? In Chinese, in Russian, in Black. Lots of people, got out to vote and said they wanted Donald Trump. Obviously, the media has called the election for Joe Biden. And so,
don't get me started on that. Here's the thing, right? The media, I don't believe, voter fraud is. I don't believe voter fraud is the real tragedy in this election. The media is complicit by negating Republican voices. They negate them. And when I say negate them, I mean shut down. Social media, shut down. I know a dozen people in the last 4 weeks that lost their Facebook account because they were posting things about Trump that some corporation didn't think was true. We had Twitter that would not publish the Hunter Biden story. Facebook that would not publish the Hunter Biden story. Why did they say they wouldn't publish the Hunter Biden story? Because it might have been based on hacked material. Well, guess what? You've been pushing hacked material from the impeachment of the president clear through to his taxes, which were leaked to the New York Times. That's hacking, because guess what? Nobody's allowed to have your taxes. So you're not, the social media platforms are not having a consistent voice. Google search results clearly manipulated. And I know, I'm a 25-year veteran. Google changed the way they operate from the election, from 16. And it's only gotten worse. So we should be worried about voter fraud, and every election that I know has a degree of fraud in it. It's usually not enough to matter, but in this race, every battleground state is less than a point. Like, it's very close, a point or less, very close. So when it's that close, voter fraud could push this election. So they have to recount. So for the media to claim Joe Biden is the president-elect is a disgrace to the Constitution of the United States of America. There's only one set of people who decides who the president-elect is, and that's the Electoral College. And when they put their vote in on December 12th, that's when we'll know who's president-elect, right? We'll know at that time if he's president-elect or not. And guess what? Unlike my hardcore friends on the left, I respect whoever is president, right? So I will work every day to fight socialism to the death, right? Anything that supports socialistic ideals, values, or views, I'm going to fight. But I'm not gonna go and attack Joe Biden the way they attacked Trump. I will attack the ideas. The media attacked the man, right? Hard, really hard.
I find it so distasteful that that the media has exposed themselves for what they are. Because, in my opinion, you know, they told us that this was going to be a runaway election for Joe Biden. They told us that
We're getting trounced.
everybody hated Donald Trump, that this was going to be a blue wave. They just fed and fed and fed us, and they didn't just start in the silly season. They've been doing this now since 2015. Since Trump actually got traction, they started, bullying him. In the beginning, it was funny because early on, when Trump first got into the race, the media was all about him because, in my opinion, they thought that he had the least chance of winning against Hillary Clinton. So let's raise him up and let's, give him some airtime. And, and basically he took all the air out of the room for the 13 other Republican candidates that were on the stage, during the debates. But then what happened, and I wrote a little article about this in 2015, that something they didn't expect happened. The people actually connected with Donald Trump. And that was because the media gave him so much airtime.
Because they got ratings and money from it.
That's right. And so the people connected with him, and now he was a force to be reckoned with. He was starting to get momentum, and the media was like, "Oh, wait a minute, whoa," and it became a snowball effect where they couldn't control now this media monster, which Trump became, and he started collecting people, not just Republicans, but Democrats and blanks and men and women and people who never cared about politics before. All of a sudden, we're jumping on the Trump train. And they told us that there was no way he was going to win against Hillary Clinton. No way whatsoever. And, if you looked at the election night's results in 2016, so many of the talking heads were near tears, some of them in tears, when Donald Trump actually won. So they spent the next 4 years fighting against him, whether it meant that they were going to only produce negative information about him, which we know that polls showed, not a poll, but an analysis of the media for Donald Trump over his 4 years of his presidency showed that 90% of the media coverage that he had was negative against Trump. 94% was negative against Trump. And then by hiding stuff about Joe Biden and softballing Joe Biden in the final election days. So the media...
For the whole time they softballed Joe Biden. It was disgusting the way they saw it. I watched it and I shook my head. I'm like, this is not media. This is a commercial for the Democratic Party. That's what every newscast was.
It was propaganda. It wasn't media, it was propaganda. And now that we have President-elect Joe Biden, I don't know what to say about the votes. Here's my feeling, my true feeling about the vote tallies, is that I think that there were a lot of mistakes, and I think there were mistakes in every election. I know there are. There are mistakes in all elections because it's impossible to get through the tabulation without mistakes. And in some places there may have been fraud. It looks to me that if there wasn't fraud, they certainly acted like there was fraud, so they created suspicion. And I think that if the media was responsible, it would have taken the advice of Frank Luntz, who is a pollster, early on, and he said, don't call anything for anybody unless you were really, really certain. And there was no real reason to rush, for the media to rush to say that this election was, went to this one or that one, because with each state being, so razor thin, with 20,000 votes separating them, or 10,000 votes, or 4,000 votes, when we're talking about 5 million votes cast, only an irresponsible media would call the election, but they did. They did. So now what has to happen is that these lawsuits have to go before judges. And these judges are only human beings, right? And all the eyes are going to be on these judges. And they're going to have to say whether they're going to overturn an election that the media called or not. And many of these judges are elected to office. Some are appointed by the governor. So we have a real problem here, because now again, human nature comes into play, and it's facts are facts, and all judges swear to uphold the oath of office, and I believe that they do. But still, human pressure can cloud human judgment, and everybody hears and sees things differently. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think that the Secretary of State of Georgia really did a great job when he said we're going to hand count every vote, because the election was just too close. So they weren't going to call it until they hand counted the votes. I think they should be doing that in Pennsylvania. I think they should be doing that in Arizona. I think they should be doing that in Michigan as well.
They are. He's got lawsuits in all those states now. And again, the margin of the win is this, it's teeny. Infinitesimal, the margin of the win in those states. So he has every right. It is constitutional. It is not bad for the country to contest an election, a la Al Gore. Al Gore held up the election for 35 days. Did we see this kind of media frenzy that's going on around Trump? No, we didn't. We saw what I would call balanced reporting on the topic. We're not getting that in this election. If I was within a point or two in each battleground state, you bet your butt I want to recount. I worked hard. I put a lot of my life, my time, my money, and I love this country. So I want to make sure the count is right. Democrats were all about voter fraud in 2016. The Russians, they're interfering. I guess they did. And now I'm looking at a New York Times article titled, "There was no voter fraud." There's no evidence of voter fraud. But in 2016, it was rampant.
Right. The Russians tampered with our elections. And that's 20 years ago, the media was, I guess we can argue that there was honor amongst the media. And I don't even recognize it anymore. And listen, I've been doing this for forever. And I know a lot of the writers and a lot of the reporters. And we've described on this show before why it's so difficult to be a reporter in today's, media world, because you don't have time to research, and you mostly regurgitate other people's work. And used to be.
And guess what? Anybody who worked for the New York Times that spoke out for Trump no longer works for the New York Times. This is a new development in our world too. Yeah. So this is sheer bullying, period, end of sentence. If you come out for Trump, you might lose your job. We even had a congressperson say that on television yesterday. Well, those people have to worry about their jobs later. What?
Exactly. Yeah. So I want everybody to understand it. Because some people have said that, I haven't been clear, and what my position was. Well, I was for Donald Trump. I am for Donald Trump. I still am for Donald Trump. And I do believe that we need to recount these votes. 70% or better of Republicans believe that there was some sort of fraud in this election. That is a huge, huge number of people in this country. When you think about Trump having more than 72 million votes, and you think about Biden having 75 or 76 million votes, this is an enormous turnout. unprecedented number of adults turned out for this election. And to me, it's a little bit odd. It's a little bit odd that we are pushing 80% of eligible adults in America have voted in this election. Unheard of, because there are many adults who are not eligible. I mean, they're 18, but they may not be legal, or they may not be registered, or they may have had a criminal past, or they may not want to register because they are afraid of jury duty. There are so many people in America that have reasons for not voting, and we've seen it over the years. And the highest number we've ever seen was around 60-some% with Obama's race. So there is every reason to believe that something is fishy here and that we need to look at it. But my big question is, for a lot of people, is what happens? What happens if Donald Trump is found to be the winner? Is anybody going to believe it?
Board up the stores again.
Or on the converse, what happens if Joe Biden is found to be the winner? How do people wrap their head around this? And do we truly believe that in a Biden world where AOC has already said we're making a list and Michelle Obama has already ridiculed us, do we believe that Republicans will get a fair shake in a Biden administration when right now the Democrats are fighting with each other? AOC and Bernie Sanders are already pushing Biden and saying he's not far enough left, and they're going to pull him to the left. And I wonder, is that what the moderate Democrats were looking for?
They don't like this either. I guarantee they don't like it. Yeah. It's a poor. Joe Biden was a poor choice. I don't know how he landed as the candidate. There was 2 or 3 others above him I could have seen being far better. America is obviously in the middle, right? The votes are that tight. So we need centrists. We need people that can satisfy both sides of the aisle. They didn't put one up, right? It's not Joe Biden. He's not the moderate guy. And in my opinion, he will not be an 8-term president. It's just not going to happen. 8-year president, 2-term president. It's not going to happen. I do believe we will see President Hanks.
Kamala Harris.
Harris. I get confused with Staten Island and in the country. But I think we'll see President Harris one day, you know. And that's not an elected, you know. It just makes me uncomfortable, the whole process. And again, I'm going to circle back to the media's unbalance. 16, everything is fraud. Joe Biden gets the nom. No fraud here. Everything's fine. No fraud.
Even though they put paper up on the window so people couldn't watch them count the votes in Pennsylvania. And there's no fraud here. No fraud here.
But again, I'll say this: there is voter fraud in every election. So don't you dare say there is no voter fraud. Every election, usually it has no impact.
Right.
It's so infinitesimal. It can't be done on a large scale. But that was pre-computer systems counted, right? Now, I'm a computer guy. No matter how good your system is, a human built it, a human can break it. It's this simple. So now they had evidence where, was it, I forgot what state, the city council.
I'm sorry, no.
Georgia?
It wasn't in Georgia. It was in Pennsylvania where the votes were changed from Trump to Biden by the computer system. And then they found out that computer system was used in 47 counties in either Pennsylvania or Michigan. And then they found out that it was used in 39 states, including in New York, by the way.
So when you bring in technology, a hardcore audit is just sensible, right? We used to physically count where we had one Democrat and one Republican, or supposedly, right? We're supposed to have that watching the count, right? So everyone's keeping everyone honest. There's nobody inside that hard drive keeping that computer honest, except the guy who wrote the program or the guy who got into the program. So again, I'm going to say this. I do believe in the end of this. If I had to bet right now, Joe Biden will be our president. But all of this needs to be investigated, right? And because it's so close, there is an outside shot that Trump actually winds up winning this election due to 450,000. Here's the thing with mail-in voting, and this is the part that really scared me. 450,000 ballots in PA don't have their envelopes, right? The law is clear on this topic. Now, we don't know who those 450,000 votes are for, right? No one's going 450,000 Trump votes were deleted. They're just 450,000 votes without envelopes. When you go through and count them, who's going to be at the advantage in the end? I don't even know if anyone actually did that to know. So you have to negate these votes because we don't know if they came in after Election Day. There's no way to tell. They're not supposed to throw those envelopes away. Those envelopes are the stamp is the proof. So now we have a riddled with fraud concept of mail-in voting,
Right.
which is going to make everybody's mother take their kids' ballots, fill them out, and send them in. Everybody's whoever's in that house that's not voting. If there's one person, Trump or Biden, bipartisan issue. Trump or Biden, I know my mother would have filled mine out and sent it in for me, but I wouldn't have. And what does that mean? A lot of people will say, "Well, we're counting the votes." No, you're counting the vote of the person who filled it out. We don't know, that the end user or the voter, and I would bet anything that this happened to some degree, was the one that actually voted. And that's why, that step of going to vote shows your effort.
All right, I want to just address some of the people that are on with us. Martin Lee is on with us. He was a guest at our show. He wrote
Yeah, Martin's great. Hey, Martin.
George, I think, from your speaker. Okay, Martin Lee is with us. Santa Guglielmo, Jamie, yes, we're going to talk about the lockdowns, the Thanksgiving and Christmas lockdowns from our friends, Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo. Marie Farrell joined us as well. Kim Salvo is with us. And our number one fan, my mother, made it. Yeah, she made it. She's saying hi to my Aunt Santa. Mom, Aunt Santa, my Aunt Santa, held down the fort for you while you're gone. She was asking that you please bring her home toilet paper. So she's giving you a shopping list. So George, here's the thing that's mind-boggling about what you just said. And I want some of our viewers to weigh in on this, because this is, when I say mind-boggling, I'm not using it as a term. I mean for real. Yep. 450,000 votes now without their envelopes. We cannot connect those envelopes with the actual ballot cast. We don't know, was it cast for Trump or was it cast for Biden? And how about the other party, the other candidates, down ballot? Who did those people vote for there? So do you just arbitrarily take 450,000 votes out of the mixed ballots, just scramble them up and take 450,000 ballots out and say, okay, now these are out, no matter what you got it for? You can't do that. You can't do that.
You should.
But you can't, because how about all the down ballot candidates? People were running for Congress and Senate in some of these districts. So if you just arbitrarily remove 450,000 ballots and you don't know who you're removing them from, is it Biden votes? Is it Trump votes? But this is the quagmire. But this is the quagmire. So it's almost as if the chaos was created so there could not be a cure. It's almost as if, we're going to be so smart, we're going to act stupid, but it's going to be the most brilliant thing ever. Because if we've already tossed out all of these envelopes, then there's no cure for it. The computer program. that switch the votes back and forth. Now, with that, there should be a tracking history, right, George? You should be able to see in the algorithm when that happened. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that should trigger an audit in every one of those machines from that company immediately, because there's a flaw. Was it human? Was it technical? We don't know, but that's scary, right? That I forget the number, but they actually switched Trump votes to Biden votes.
They said about 2 million. Overall, the Trump campaign reported that 2.5 million votes were switched
the
out
Trump campaign, right?
across all the states. Were switched, from Trump to Biden, according to the reports from the IT people. And they had a person with an affidavit that was working on IT, and she actually said that she reported it to her supervisor. Supervisor said, "We're not here to get involved in the election. We're here to just handle the IT." But so she has an affidavit out there. But that should be easy to see, right? Because when you have digital data like that, you're able to track it. Unless
there's usually a trail, but that trail can be covered up too.
It can be scrubbed.
And unfortunately, most people are not technical savvy, including the entire whole of Congress. They are the worst technical people ever. Most in government are, for some reason. I guess they're more focused on issues and law than they are on technology. They don't understand it. But anyone in technology, and I would even challenge my hardcore progressive left friends who are in technology to deny that any program can be manipulated, period, end of sentence. There is no program that is bulletproof. And that's why I don't really even like the automated count machines. I'd rather us hand count the vote. I'm a technologist. I'd rather us hand count the vote. I'd feel safer.
So it's really interesting because I know that when you and I first partnered up, you were all about digital voting. And, you said, let's see, I'll put it online, make it easy. We need to be able to vote from our phone. But in the recent months, I don't know that you still feel that way. And
No. Also, the mail-in vote didn't exist then either. So it added.
Not to the extent that it does now, but it always did. And I think New York has handled, listen, I think New York got it right. Here's how New York handles its mail-in votes, ladies and gentlemen. You must request the ballot in order to get it. Yeah. And the ballots are not counted unless the election is closed. The absentee ballots. They're ultimately counted, but they're not a part of the vote tally. Really unless the election is very close. And at that time, both sides can be there challenging the ballots. But there's an opportunity now to cure. Like if somebody forgot their signature, they have time to go back and get their signature. So there's an opportunity for all that. But it reduces the ability for fraud, because if you can, if somebody sends it in without a signature and you say, okay, here, you can, you can cure this, and the person is dead, oh, well, we know that there's a little fraud there, right? And the other thing is thanks to, and I'm very proud of this, we only just remembered it recently, that 20 years ago when I was the Republican Party chair, there was a question about these found absentee ballots that did make a difference in a minor party rate, in a minor race. And it was found by a Board of Elections person. And so my commissioner put forth an edict, and it was voted on by all of New York City, that there would be 3 locks on all of the doors when in the room where the ballots were kept during elections. One would have a key by a Republican, one the key for the Democrat, and then there was the regular lock that everybody had a key to so that they could get in and out during when the ballots weren't there. But it kept the ballots secure, and it kept the election workers out of any questions of fraud. It's a smart move. I would strongly suggest that states adopt this. It should be adopted statewide.
And you know what? That could be adopted with new technology too, right? There should be spot audits of all equipment, all votes, checking manual to the machine throughout the entire process. And that's not happening everywhere. So in other words, a Republican and a Democrat, machine counts the ballots, then they take the paper ballots and they try to match it to the machine.
Yep.
And if that matches, the machine's good. We know it's good. You can spot, you don't have to do every one. You can spot check it, and that's the triple lock, right? You can have that 3 times. The triple, I love the triple lock.
Yeah.
But we're all running out of time, and I know we
So
want to
let's
talk
talk
about
about
lockdowns.
Cuomo and De Blasio. Let's talk about, for those people that don't know, Governor Cuomo has said that if you live in New York, you can't have more than 10 people to your house for Thanksgiving. And Mayor De Blasio has said that he is going to make sure that that doesn't happen. And no matter what I do to try and get my head around this, I just can't get my head around how this is going to happen. Jamie Ann asked us about it, and she said it's socialism and communism at its worst, and I agree. I mean, George, what are they going to do? Start sending police officers around to homes and bang on the door and say
They dare call Trump a fascist. And you want to talk about fascism and how it creeps in. This is it. And you know what? I'm so sick of people thinking like, well, you want to kill people? What about the safety of my family? You're not taking this. You're not following the science. I don't care how many corona cases there are. I do not care. I don't care what the flu count is. And COVID is more deadly than the flu. No doubt about it. But the case count goes up and the death rate's going down without a vaccine. We don't have a vaccine. Right. Kim Salvo just said something really funny. Kim, you're right. Yeah, I thought Cuomo was an Italian, but apparently, maybe he's faking it. I don't know.
Well, the question is what if you have more than 10 people living in your house? What are you going to do? Get rid of people? I mean, and say, I'm sorry, you can't come to dinner? Or are you going to serve dinner in shifts? This whole situation is ridiculous because we have learned that lockdowns don't work. We are learning that destroying the economy is not the way to go. But this isn't about our best interest. This is about a power grab. Cuomo and De Blasio get off on the idea that they get to have a press conference every day and a bunch of people tune in to listen to them. And by the way, I've been tuning into them since the beginning, and their numbers are plummeting. Nobody wants to hear what they have to say anymore because none of the information that they are given is actually based in science anymore. It's just not. They're arbitrarily doing things. Now in Staten Island, we're told that we have a spike. And so now we're closing down schools. We're closing down after 10 o'clock. You can't go to the gym.
So COVID, we talked about this. COVID's a vampire. It only gets you sick at 10:01.
That's right. COVID is
mental crap is that?
Where is the science that has shown us that you could only catch COVID after 10 o'clock?
I understand it's less time, but that's going to pack more people into the restaurants before 10. You're making it more dangerous.
We just talked at the top of the show, the fact that we had to have 800 turkeys delivered to people, many of them who were once donors to Project Hospitality and are now recipients because they have lost their business, they have lost their homes, they have lost everything that they've invested in because of the way that that De Blasio and Cuomo have treated this state. I mean, they want to hold themselves up in some way, shape, or form as if they were the poster child for how to beat COVID, and they dumped it on Trump's lap that he somehow created COVID and made it spread. When the truth of the matter is that Cuomo killed hundreds of thousands of people in nursing homes. And in this state, he kept us locked down, and we don't even know what the true death toll with the COVID lockdown is going to be, because how many more people are struggling with addiction today than they were when we got locked down in March? How many more women and children have been abused because of it?
There's an 8% jump in suicide rates since COVID versus prior periods. That's something, you know.
How many people
Drug
died
use.
heart attack? How many people died because they didn't get their dialysis? I mean, I could go on and on and on. But it comes back down to who is going to enforce this? And are you, and I'm asking our audience, are you going to stick to the 10 number? Do you think that it makes any sense? So are you going to say, yes, we are going to listen to the Gestapo and we are going to reduce the people that we have at our family dinner? Is this what we're willing to do? And if not, I want to know why. And I want to know what your thoughts are. I'm livid over this.
I'd love to know too. I am paying no attention to this whatsoever. What I do in my home is my domain. Government, stay the hell out of my home. Period. End of sentence. Everyone that comes to my home understands the risk that they're taking. We are all adults here. One. Two, there are certain segments of this population we need to protect. And if you're 70 years old or older, don't come to Thanksgiving. I'm not bringing grandma. I get it. Like, I get that that's the person that's at risk. But if I had the flu, I would tell them the same thing because they're weak in state at that age. And so anything that gets them, it could kill them.
But George, 70-year-olds go out to dinner. They go out to dinner all the time. And they're eating in restaurants where they don't know the other people. We're talking about family who, if I'm going to have 36 people at my house for Thanksgiving, I'm going to go get a COVID test. And I'm going to say, listen, grandma's coming. She's got a heart disease. She's got this. Everybody who's been anywhere or thinks they're exposed, go get a quick test before they come to Thanksgiving. But then you can come to Thanksgiving.
This is my family to protect.
Right. That's
mine,
right.
not yours, Cuomo. You're not my papa. So screw you. I'd love to be able to say this to his face. And I understand that, that he's masterful at dividing us, and he doesn't realize what he's doing either. I don't know. Maybe he does.
I think he does now.
He's dividing us into war zones because if you're a Republican, you're trying to kill my grandmother. Period. End of sentence. And when I say Republican, I probably should use if you're a person of science who realizes what these stats actually mean. I get our hospitals. If hospitals start to get overloaded, that's one thing. And is that happening in certain spots? Maybe, but not here. Not where we live. So we need to pay attention to where we live. Period. End of sentence. Because if you try to apply these rules blanket to everyone, it just doesn't make sense. And again, here's the most important part. It is against the Constitution. There has been more people killed in the name of public good than you could ever imagine in history, right? Yeah. Public good is a great weapon to control the masses. And forgive me, I hope Father Martin's not watching. That's what the devil is in the Catholic religion, right? If you do this, it's bad. The devil's going to get you. Right. Well, they're using COVID like the devil. That's they're trying to control what we, as free people who live under the Constitution of the United States of America, can do. And guess what? That's not America. We take care of our own. You take care of your own. I'll take care of my own. And I will also be respectful to you when I'm out in public because we're in a shared area. That's right. Shared area.
Shared area. I wear my mask even though I have antibodies because I don't want anybody upset. I don't want anybody to feel like I'm spreading the virus, so I always wear my mask in public. But George, it started when they took away our right to worship. They took away our right to worship, and none of the churches stood out and said, hey, this is a really bad idea. And it's only now that the Archdiocese, which is probably one of the most powerful entities in the world, is finally saying we've had enough. But I think they waited a little bit too long. But they took away our right to worship. Then they took away our right to send our kids to school, right? And they have their own way of doing it. They were trying to take away our right to actually go to the polling place. In Jersey, they actually did that. They did not allow you to vote in the machine. So they've been whittling away at our rights. And George, it's getting more blatant by the moment, because just for anybody who's watching here, I may haven't mentioned this at another show, but I want you to hear it again. In the city council right now, there's a bill called Intro 1977, and that bill states that if you own a three-family home or more, that if you want to sell that home, you must sell it to the city of New York if it wants to buy your home. So, in other words, you have to register your home with HPD, your ownership, and when you're ready to sell it, you cannot make a private sale of that home if the city of New York, if one of the agency wants to buy your home. Why is this happening? Because Mayor de Blasio and AOC and the squad do not believe that people should own property. They want property parsed out amongst society. And this is the first move towards actually seizing property from New Yorkers. And they're starting with three-family homes or better. And it's only a matter of time before they start to come over after the single-family homes. So this is in the council right now. It is not a joke. It is not an exaggeration. Look it up. Intro 1977. It was introduced in June while we were all under COVID. And you should really start speaking out against this, because they are coming. As conspiracy theorists as that sounds, they are coming. They're coming.
I don't think it's that crazy. It's an interesting thing too. I think you and I both. I don't want to take this off into another topic, but I think we spoke about COVID. Nobody owns their home now. How about that?
Right.
This is my opinion, right? If I retire tomorrow, I still have taxes to pay, right, on my property. So forever, as long as I can pay my taxes, I own my property. It's more like a lease to me. You're leasing land, and if you don't make the payment, they're going to come take it. Again, I've avoided home ownership. I only owned one home in my life because I always felt this way. You don't really own it. I would like to see taxes shift to consumption tax,
Yep.
and people to own their property and own it forever. That's your property. I'd love to see that day. But different topic, but I just had to get it off my chest.
But you know what? Now it brings us full circle back to Congresswoman-elect Nicole Maliotakis.
Right.
Because that conversation about consumption tax needs to take place in the federal government, in Congress, and that truly is probably the most equitable type of taxation that we can have, is consumption, because there's no loopholes, right? People complain that Donald Trump and big corporations don't pay their taxes. Well, with the consumption tax, everybody has to pay it, and they pay according to what they consume. And rich people consume more, than poor people on an average per capita or per dollar average. So the richer you are, the more you will consume.
It's actually a fair way of taxing the rich.
It really is, and it's one that I don't think that anybody who is rich would actually rail against, because it's fair. It's fair for everybody, and it's the more you consume, the more you pay. So maybe we'll talk about that. But on Monday, we're going to talk. I think on Monday we're going to talk with Verrazano Kiwanis, and we're going to bring on Celia and Steve. And why we're talking with the Kiwanis is because this is giving season, right? And there's so many people that want to give and they don't know how. And the Kiwanis has done great things, not only with Lidl with the turkeys, but also with the Jersey Street Merchants Association and the holiday party, and so many other things, and Sunrise. So you might want to learn a little bit about Kiwanis, and you're really going to enjoy Steve, the Argentine, and Celia. I agree.
Yeah, good people that work very hard for this community, and no one in my Kiwanis club is doing it for fame. I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by people that just want to help. And this is, again, where I have we don't need social programs here. I'd like to decide who I help, and that's why I love charity. Social programs, we need some social programs. I'm not saying get rid of all social programs. They all have their place, or some of them have their place. But this giving season allows us to decide what strikes us and who we think needs the help. And our club doesn't stop. Even during COVID, we did our best to try and raise some funds. So, tune in on Monday to get to learn more about the Kiwanis. We're always looking for new members.
And you guys accept everybody, right? You don't limit,
Everybody. We're not a Rotary. It's not a networking group. We just pick a charity and help them. That's it.
And just for anybody else out there, George is also the president. I'm the executive director of Elephants in the Room, which is a conservative-minded think club that's going to meet on the 18th, on Wednesday the 18th at La Fontana. So if anybody wants to come, please do. Go to Elephant in the Room Facebook page, and you'll be able to see that event. So it's time to get active. Everybody was so active during this 2020 election season. Stay active. Don't go away. Your voice matters. Even though the media was wrong, because we exercised our right to vote. And whether Joe Biden becomes the president or not, it doesn't matter. We created a razor-thin margin for Donald Trump, and we proved the media was wrong. Just think about that. He had the entire media, all the celebrities, and all the sports figures against him for 4 years. And that margin of victory for Joe Biden, if it turns out to be for him, was razor thin. So your voice mattered. So tune in on Monday, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, and don't forget, no matter what happens in the election, we're going to be adults. And when the vote comes in, not now, when the Electoral College presents those votes, we will have a president of the United States of America. Thanks, everybody.
And we'll respect him. Okay, very good.
Right, and we'll respect him.
Thanks, George. Have a great